Reading 84 from the Psychological Commentaries on the Teaching of Gurdjieff and Ouspensky by Dr. Maurice Nicoll, Volume 3. Great Animal House, June 28, 1947. Intelligence and Instinct. A question was asked recently about the difference between instinct and intelligence. Now, one definition of intelligence used in the work is that it is the power of adaptation. In animals, birds, and insects, instinct may be highly developed, and yet little or no power of adaptation may be present. For example, a bird, say, can only make its nest in a certain way, and if interrupted has to start all over again from the beginning, that is, from dough. Instinctive center seems to work in nature directly by the law of octaves, the stage do leading to and exciting re, and the stage re exciting mi, and so on. In biological science, the characteristic all or nothing is sometimes applied to the working of the instincts. That is, there is nothing adapted. So in other words, the power of adaptation is not a marked feature of the instinctive center. To act instinctively is therefore not the same as intelligence. Now it has been noticed that the power of adaptation is related to the size of the brain. A living creature with a very small brain, and therefore comparatively few brain cells, has little or no power of adaptation, although it may perform most complex movements and make complex things. Now every living thing has its own special form or pattern of instinctive center, which is its life director and gives it meaning. It would be no use creating an animal without creating a life for it to live. The animal would be meaningless. The work says that instinctive center at birth in us is not blank, as say the intellectual center, but is highly developed and gives us our early meanings. The instinctive center, then, may be thought of as being similar to a particular disc inserted into the body, just as a record is into a gramophone. The tune on the record is already written on it. The form of the body in each creature is, of course, adapted to the record. It would be odd and amazing if the brain of a fly were inserted into a dog. Now, the size of the brain is connected with the quantity of association areas, as they are called, and it is upon these so-called silent areas that the powers of adaptation depend. In contrast to compulsory, single-track, instinctive behavior. There are vast nerve tracts and millions of fibers ascending to the brain which carry inwards all the sense impressions from the external world. There are vast nerve tracts and fibers that descend from the brain and which terminate in the hundreds of thousands of muscle bundles that produce action. Between these two sets of nerve tissues lie the association areas, owing to which a stimulus coming from, say, a prick of a pin, need not follow only one track and cause, say, a cry. We must remind ourselves that there are about 14,000 million separate brain cells, or small minds, in an adult European, each with about 100 connections with one another. This is the physical basis of associations and associative pathways. We, of course, use only a very few. So much of the brain seems useless. In short, we have far more than we need for ordinary life, and this is surprising if the modern theories of evolution by mechanical selection are correct. If we have extra, how can that be mechanical selection? All these associative paths, these brain cells that endure for our lifetime, as distinct from body cells, form the underlying basis of the power of adaptation. Today, we will speak briefly of associations and adaptation, and the connection of these with work terms. self-remembering, and thinking in a new way. That is, mitvoya. So much used in the New Testament and so badly translated as repentance. In this work, we are studying through the method of self-observation to become increasingly conscious of how we take things as we are now. This is the first step, to know oneself, to become aware of one's mechanicalness, which one always accepts as oneself. That is, to realize that we react in the same way. But in this work, we are also studying how not to take things in the same way. This is the second step, and it is called self-remembering. It is called the first conscious shock that we can give the human machine, and it depends for its application on a development of consciousness at the point of reception of impressions, and its starting point is self-observation. A man who can be conscious simultaneously of the exciting stimulus coming in, say a person, and the mechanical response, is already at that level of consciousness, called in the work the state of self-remembering. This is a higher state of consciousness. In general, man is asleep in his mechanicalness, and so the world is as it is. That is, humanity is asleep. Now, if the stimulus arising from without always calls up the same reaction, the same response, the same feelings and words from within, it can be said that such a person is not intelligent. Why? Because he has no power of adaptation. The same associations are followed, the same reply is made. You may ask, "Oh, we all know such people." But you yourself are like that. You are a machine too, and only by struggling to reach another level of consciousness can you cease being the machine you are. Now, when you take in impressions voluntarily, the associative paths they follow are different from the paths followed when you take in impressions involuntarily. In this work, we gradually learn to take in impressions more and more consciously. That is, to take in impressions voluntarily. What does this mean? Voluntarily means this: I see myself taking in this impression in this way and notice what response it makes. If you are in that state, something is added to your way of living. This is the beginning of understanding what the work is about. If you have got so far, you have already a priceless pearl. You realize you need not take things as you always have taken things. This is the first conscious shock. This means you have intelligence. That is, that you can change your automatic way of behavior. In other words, you can adapt yourself to changing external life and not be held down to one path of associations.